also find the recording on the CHFA Now site under special events. Secondly, we've carved out about 15 minutes at the end of our chat for questions. This is a great opportunity to ask each of these successful entrepreneurs questions about their journey. To ask a question, please write in the chat. You can do this by clicking on the talk bubble. It's at the right top of your screen. Please note that chat is public, so everyone has visibility into your questions and comments. Now, before we officially get started, let me properly introduce our esteemed guests. Jake Carls co-founded Midday Squares with his sister and brother-in-law in 2018. Together, they created the first functional chocolate bar and have since sold over 1 million bars. Jake's lively personality has helped explode the brand to what it is now, creating a loyal fan base, including me, and a killer product. John Bonnell is the co-founder of Holy Veggie, launched the brand in 2017 with the goal of getting more vegetables in the day-to-day Canadian diet. With over 10 years of work on both the agency side and working in CPG, his strategic rigor has made the brand what it is today. Dominic Dubé is the co-founder of Evive Nutrition. After graduating from university, he and his wife shifted their focus from academia to health, nutrition, and wellness. Their passion for healthy eating created Evive Nutrition, a hugely successful brand with 300% growth year over year. Amazing. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to our panelists. Each of you have successful brands in Canada. So I'm going to start off with, how did you know it was time to start thinking about a US launch?
Who wants to start? Dom.
Yeah, I'll go. I've been in business for the longest, so so if it's been 7 years, and I gotta say, since first year we were thinking about the US. It was sort of a big dream of ours. The moment we sort of pulled the trigger, we had two things. We basically raised a round of capital, so we had the money to sort of start executing and hiring, and we had the production capacity. We had just moved into a new facility, so we had those two things. And so as soon as we had that, we basically started prospecting in the US, walking trade shows, and yeah, basically build a strategy. And so that was in 2016. 2019. Yeah.
I'll jump in there. So I like to say, like, we had this perfect plan, but I think, the more people you talk to, you realize that the plan goes out the window when you get an opportunity. And I like to say, like, I take it from Jake, just show up. And we showed up at an event for TED, the global conference in Vancouver, and we were sampling our product. And I told one of our guys, just collect business cards. And one of the business cards he collected was a senior vice president at Target. So after the show, sent over an email, nothing. Second email, nothing. Third email, got a reply. And it was 2 VPs at Target. And they gave us a shot to go down and present. And we had no clue if we'd get in. We were still just selling in Canada. We were still just doing small, 3 little products. And we presented, and they called us and they said, look, we want to start you in 200 stores. And we had the moment to say, look, like, this wasn't part of the plan. Do we have enough capital? Should we be doing this? But I think the more you talk to any entrepreneur, even on this panel, you just go for it sometimes. So we went in, and we've been growing it ever since. Would I do that again? Not too sure, but that's how we got in.
Love it, John. And Catherine, thanks for that intro, epic intro. Appreciate your support. So for us, it's a little different. We started in August 2018, and we are self-manufacturers, so we control our capacities, obviously. And building out that manufacturing side was extremely difficult over the last 3.5 years, just to scale it, and make sure that the gross margins are at the right price point. So, just to explain it, if you don't have a good gross margin, you're going to burn through a lot of capital. And going to the US, we knew costed a lot of capital. And the reason why we knew is because we knew a lot of Canadian brands that tried to go there, and they just depleted a tremendous amount of capital trying to make it. They either spread themselves too thin, or they didn't get the start they wanted to. But one day I'll never forget, one of our favorite retailers reached out, and it was
bated breath waiting for who it was.
I can fill in the blanks for him.
Leave it in California, and those whatever amount of stores that they had, it was maybe 6 or 5 at the time. And it was just like a simple opportunity.
Jake, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you cut out just when you were about to say
We missed the name.
Yeah, we missed the name of the store.
Oh, sorry, Erewhon. So they have like 5-6 stores, and the idea was that we just wanted to work with them and let it just be a them, build up the brand a little bit, test to see what's going on. And one thing led to another, and that led to another massive opportunity to national. And when you see these shiny opportunities, you're like, oh my God, this is super, super exciting. And that was Sprouts. Sprouts has about 382 stores, and they wanted to go national. And we got too excited, and we actually decided to just take it. And the problem was we didn't have a plan. So we just said, screw it. And we did it. And if I were to go back today, I wouldn't have taken that opportunity. Even though they're a great retailer, I would have waited till we had a brand development more in the US so that the pull was there rather than pushing and spending so much resource and time when we had a very strong Canadian business.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I would say on that point from Jake, which is like, we go for it sometimes, but I think to Jake's point, like gross margin and capital, like Dom, you can speak to this as well, which is like you it's hard to pin a number, but like you got to have north of $2 million if you're gonna go down to the US to be able to deal with, just the challenges and issues you'll have with distribution, having to support. And at the Jake's point, if you're just pushing your product on every single retailer, like you get in, but then you're pushing to consumer. You want to create a pull strategy. So you want to build the brand and win region by region and then grow from there. But it's you got to be careful. So like if people jump in, and people are on this right now listening, like if you get that shot and you get that opportunity and you go for it, make sure you're well capitalized, make sure you know your margins, make sure you have a route to market, and make sure you can support. Otherwise, you don't get a second shot at launching with a retailer and a fan base.
That's terrific. Thank you so much for that, guys. Okay, so when we chatted before, each of you expressed how raising money was important because tapping into the US market costs a lot of money, John, which you were just talking about. But you each stressed that a strong strategy is just as important as capital. Each of you took different paths to the States. Can you each share a bit on how you strategized this launch and maybe a little bit about what you would do differently this time if you had to do it over again?
Jake, why don't you start, Jake? Why don't you jump in?
I got this. Great question. So our launch was, again, we took an opportunity without a strategy. So we love Sprouts. It's a great account, and we're crushing it there now, but it took a lot of time. And the idea was, we just said, you know what? Our Canadian strategy was go city by city, kind of like what Facebook did. Facebook, when they grew their company, they went college by college, right? And then they dominated that college and they would go to the next one. That was our original plan in Canada, and it was working really well. We did Montreal, then we did Toronto, then we went over to Vancouver, and it was really successful. When we went to the US, Sprouts put us in 23 states. The problem with 23 states is the United States is way bigger population-wise and distribution-wise. And the kicker of the US is you don't just ship your product directly to the store. You have to go through a distributor, right? So UNFI and KeHE are not just a couple of warehouses there. They're between them. I think they're over 20. I'm not sure the exact number. And in order to get them, you have to unlock the volume to open up each warehouse. So when you start to do that, and unless you have control, you're going to get charged back all kinds of money. You're going to start to have to deal with them, and the out of stocks are going to be out of hand. And that's what happened to us at the beginning. It was extremely, extremely difficult to win at Sprouts because of all the resources, time, and energy that had to go into it, and that we weren't following our typical strategy, which was Facebook's strategy of going city by city. So going back, I would say I would have done regional launches and not got national right off the bat. And that would have helped us grow the base as we were building our online awareness and our trial through our D2C business in the US. We would have aligned it where the most popular spot is and then opened up retail in that zone. That's what I would have done differently. That being said, we are here today and we still are doing business in the US. So we're proud of that, but it's been a journey.
Right on. Dom, like what was your strategy?
Well, the exact same thing. We wanted to go regional in the Northeast at first. We thought the logistic cost would make sense. It was close. It was a market that we knew a little bit, but we didn't get really much traction for the first year. I think we got a couple of stores and not the right distributor, and so at some point we had to pivot, and so we started presenting to other larger accounts a little bit all over the place, and just see where the traction would come from, and that's how, a little bit like you guys, we got national because we got a response from some retailers that were in many different states. So we ended up opening multiple warehouses, and it definitely changed the strategy from being regional and natural independent food stores to being more in the natural set of the more conventional accounts. And we're still early, right? We're in our second year in the US, so it's hard to say if the strategy is the right one. But right now, this has built a decent volume. It allows us to invest on the brand, allow us to work on the margin. So right now, it's been a better strategy than focusing on local and not having any sales. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, like just dovetailing off of what Dom and Jake are saying, our strategy was after the Target business. We know we had to we couldn't lose that business. That needed to become a calling card for us, which in a way it was a little bit of one. But what we learned really quickly was that when we approached some stores in like SoCal and NorCal, we kept hearing back, well, are you in the UNFI DC?
Mm-hmm.
Are you in the KE DC? And then what we learned was that certain stores act as anchor accounts to open up or unlock a DC. So with certain warehouses for SoCal, like Gelson's is an anchor account, or in NorCal you can have Nugget or Rayleigh's be anchor accounts. And once we learned that, we said, okay, let's pick these regions. Let's go after the anchors, because once you open up an anchor, it then unlocks the ability for all the other independents to buy your products from that DC. But you got to be careful, because if you open up too many DCs, what happens too with UNFI and Key in the US is they send you a report every week. And basically, if they view your item as not turning fast enough, they'll delist you before the store. So we've had scenarios where all of a sudden, like we get an email saying you're at threat for delist on say one of our flavors, and we're like, what do you mean? Like this is national with Whole Foods. What are you talking about? And they have that type of power, these distributors. So if you unlock too many DCs and you don't have the capital and the marketing to support it, you can find yourself in a heck of a mess. And you got these emails saying, come pick up your product, we'll throw it out. So we learned that really quickly. And that strategy of opening up the key DCs and focusing on those has helped us grow.
Interesting. John, I'm going to just tag on to your response there. You mentioned when we were talking before, there's a lot of people, I'm assuming some might not be that trustworthy, that are offering to help you grow your business in the US. What steps did you take to find a US broker, and what advice would you share with other brands to maybe avoid a bad one?
Look, I'd say the US is filled with landmines. You have to be careful where you step, because each one blows up your capital. So I'd say that there's a lot of people out there who give advice to people like Dom, Jake, myself, and they recommend brokers, they recommend distributors, but we have to remember that maybe their success was at a point in time, and maybe the broker that worked for them doesn't work today. And so you got to take in all that advice and that strategy, but be careful not to sign contracts with a lot of people. You feel free to get advice, but you eventually have to do your own homework. So what we did end up doing, and I'm happy to share this with anyone, was we ended up going through and we talked to every broker we could. And then sales management companies will pitch you to say, hey, don't hire a sales force in the US. We recommend a sales management company. It's $12,000, $16,000, $20,000 a month. Here's my retainer. We'll look after your business, 50 brand max per person, blah, 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 blah. And you can start shelling out a lot of dollars. So I did a report, and basically I graded every broker that I could find, a salesman company, and I said, who fits us best? And I would say too, sometimes you cycle through different brokers and distributors. Some people go national with a broker, some people go regional, some people go specific. We've just signed up a broker just for Kroger because they're specialists. But I'd say Jake, Dom, you jump in here too, but you got to be careful.
Yeah, Jake and Dom, do you guys have any insights you'd like to share?
Well,
Dom, you go first.
Yeah, on the broker side of things, we have I think we have 4 different brokers. So we haven't found any success to having only one that can do it all. Like you mentioned, John, there's brokers that are specialists for Target, and those that are specific for Kroger. So we were quite lucky to meet our VP of sales, who had built a frozen company in the US a couple of years prior to joining Aviv, and so she had those contacts, and so we signed based on her recommendation those brokers, and it's been great. You know, we got Kroger, we got Target on our first year, so having the right broker for sure, and ideally having someone that can recommend them, so you don't just find them on Google.
Yeah, I think my strategy when we found our broker in the US, who again, we have one for natural, and then the rest are specialized for like Dom and John have said, you know, Kroger and Target. I think what we did was I looked for the stores that I liked products, and the products that I thought were cool and trendy and placed well and had great promos. And I would ask the brand then that I liked, that I saw on the US side, who their broker was, and they would tell us, and then I would say, can you introduce us? And that was a way to get a good referral into a good system, and then have someone that's already doing well with them refer you into their system. And I think that, you know, we work with Greenspoon as a natural, and they've been phenomenal for us in the US. They've been phenomenal for the natural side, so like the Sprouts, the Whole Foods, the all the independents that, you know, you would like. But again, if you're going to go to the bigger conventional side, you need specialists specifically for Target, Kroger, Walmart, because they have their ins to those stores. They understand what they need, what they want, what their promo strategies look like, how they want their product distributed. So yeah, you got to choose accordingly. And what's harder about Canada and the US is you might have, like Dom said, 4 brokers. That's a lot of management for either your VP of sales or one of us doing it. And I think that that's something to take into account as you grow there, is be careful for how many people, how many groups, how many organizations you have to manage. There again, they're not going to do everything just for you. You need to have a vision, you have to have a mission with them, and you have to keep them accountable. So I think that creates a lot more resources and capital and resources to it.
Amazing. Dom, I'm going to come back to you. I just wanted to know if you could expound a little bit on what brands need to know about distributing a product in the US. Like, what's the difference in focusing your efforts potentially in one state versus the entire country?
Yeah, well, on the branding side of things, for us, when we also launched a D2C business, and the plan was that we would invest a lot in our D2C business to create awareness, and that would funnel some retail awareness as well, and retail sales. What we ended up learning is that going in D2C and retail at the same time was just crazy, because at the same time we had the Canadian business, retail, and D2C. It was just too much. So right now we're really focused on retail, and we're not funneling as much money on paid media and influencer and all that, because we don't really see the return on our retail velocity. So now we're getting our money much closer to the stores. So guerrilla marketing type, demoing and doing those retailer program, versus doing like Facebook advertisement. So we definitely learned a lot and pivoted this strategy there.
Awesome. John, Jake, anything to add to your experiences with the same question?
Yeah, like I'll throw it, like Dom and I operate with the frozen supply chain too, which is a bit more difficult in the US, and from this distribution side of things, and Jake can talk this too, like there's different options, right? So you can run pickup programs with Unifier KE. Sometimes you can find a third-party consolidator out there who can help you get stuff across the door. Sometimes you go direct with certain retailers. I would see that freight is a variable that is really difficult to control, and it's even worse in the US. And you're constantly trying to find ways to bring that element of your COGS down, because also in Canada, I would say that with distribution and some of the retailers, they're very good at respecting MOQs. And I would say you give an MOQ to a distributor in the US, and they'll laugh at you. And they'll say, we buy what we want, or we don't buy from you. So you realize very quickly that the relationship's a bit different. And so you have to factor in sometimes a bit of buffer when it comes to distribution, and you have to be creative. And the one catch is that if you run pickup in the US, you'll notice that the distributors sometimes will margin up even more on your pickup price to reflect their costs for freight, and they'll margin up on the freight. So all of a sudden you're like, You're like, oh, I run pickup. I'm controlling the variable for cost now. Then all of a sudden you go into Whole Foods and you're like, why did my price go up 35 cents? And you're like, oh, it's because of this. So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, but you're always looking at different options. And don't be afraid to ask questions from all of, like, anyone you know in the industry and stuff like that. This is not something that everyone's solved 100%. We're always looking for different ways to improve.
I think on the freight side of things, something we didn't do is actually talk with frozen brands that did it. So we went out and get some quotes from transportation company, but we didn't factor in everything. So when we launched, we definitely got a hit on the margin, and we had to figure out ways to recapture that margin. So on the freight, John, I 100% with you. It's like, make sure you really plan it out well when you build your pricing, because it can be 2, 3, 4 times what it is in Canada.
Yeah.
Jake, I'm going to jump to you and ask if you can share some of the key differences you've found in doing business in Canada versus the US. Like, can you basically just replicate the same model as Canada, or is it completely different?
So I think that's a great question. And I think I had a different perspective before launching in the US than I do now. And what I realized is, yes, we're both North America, right? So Canada and US are both within that continent, but the consumer habits are actually different, and the way that retailers merchandise are different as well. So going in, I thought, maybe it's the same consumer, same exact thing. You put the product there, it should work in this section, it should do that. And then you start to realize that they like different things. We might like plant-based as a whole altogether. That's great. That's an initiative that we all agree on, but the different styles of plant-based can be different. And we learned that, it's not just like, okay, if you have Metro here in Canada, it's the same as Kroger in the US. They're both conventional. Obviously, one's bigger than the other in terms of size of stores, but it's very different. They operate differently. The consumer shops differently, and they have more technologies and tools, a lot more in the US than in Canada, that are utilized. For example, Instacart is way more developed there. There's a lot more different platforms on the online side of that stuff. So yeah, I think going into it, you have to know and do your research on what is it that really works there and here. We're neighbor countries. We are different. And that was something that was kind of like a rude awakening. Even the Whole Foods shopper here in Canada is different than the Whole Foods shopper in the Northeast of New York, for example. Like, you're seeing the differences. The products aren't necessarily the same. And one thing in the US is data is cheaper, which is great. Less expensive, let's call it, to buy up on your stuff. And you could get more visibility easier in the US than in Canada, unless you want to really invest a lot of money into the Canadian operation. So there's a lot of differences, but the commonality that I could tell you is that overall, we like similar initiatives or trends, but we like different specifics and we shop differently. So I think that's a big thing to note before going into the US. I'm not sure if Dom and John experienced something similar, but I'd love to hear.
Well, I want to add something to that, because I think 3 or 4 years ago, John and I, we talked, and you guys were already selling in the US, and you mentioned that US consumer was much more aware of the price tag. Like, they don't really see that, they don't like big pack necessarily in conventional account. It's, want the low price. And that actually changed my strategy from going with a 3-pack of smoothies to a 2-pack, lower price point. And I think that was a great decision. So in terms of consumers, like in Canada, it doesn't really matter, 2-pack, 3-pack, people, they sort of see the value and not so price sensitive. But in the US, I think it was a good choice.
It's literally this in action. So my advice was helpful. So I appreciate it. But and the other thing, Dom, you and I talked about too, was the psychological barrier for a price point in the US is radically different than in Canada. There are certain numbers, if you break it in that category, a customer is not willing to pay. And like, for example, like there are certain categories, like say frozen entrees, right? Like, you go north of $7, you got a hard time, real hard time. And then the velocity expectations. So when you're building out forecasts for revenue for the US, and you're helping that like dictate production and using that to, like, say you're raising capital, expect the velocities to be a lot lower in the US than they are in Canada. Now, some categories a little bit different for that, but generally speaking, it's like, you start running your math, and to define your velocity, for people who are listening, and if you want to figure it out, try to get a hold of SPINS data and it'll tell you what the category average velocity is. As Jake mentioned a bit earlier, the importance of data. You got to buy your spins data. So you get a budget, 35 to 40 grand just for data alone on the year to buy it. And that will be your guide. That'll tell you which stores need support. It'll tell you what the velocity is. It'll tell you what your top movers are. And a lot of the retailers that when you go to present, they'll look at your data in spins. And if you're not performing, they're not going to consider you. So like you can tell them you got the best thing in the world in Canada. They don't care. Right?
Also, you're right with that data component, John. I also want to add, like, for example, like just specific to our category, we're refrigerated snacking. You go to Canada, across Canada, the refrigerated snacking set is not developed. So there's no, like, the placement, we're figuring out, is it produce? Is it dairy? Is it in another cooler? Where is it? In the US, this set has been defined by Perfect Bar for the last 14 years, sorry. So they've built a set that already exists, which has brought in more competition, more products, more in, I guess, innovation to a certain extent. So the competitive arena it's more competitive, but there's a destination that's specific and consistent across the retailers. Mm-hmm. In Canada, there is none. So we're setting the trend on that. That's a big difference. It's got its pros and cons.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point, Jake.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear from you guys, based on your comments here. Like, how do you know when it's time to hire staff in the States? And if you have, how has that helped your business?
Who wants to start? You want me to start?
Sure.
Yeah, you jump in, Jake.
So the US, again, it's a whole other game. Like, it's separate than Canada. And originally we had one person doing both, managing both Canada, US, and that was extremely difficult. It was a lot of work. It's separate, even strategies potentially. So just to manage it, again, if you have 4 brokers in the US and you have 2 in Canada or 1 in Canada, then you have distributors, you have 20 warehouses of distribution in the US, and you have 4 here in Canada, there's a lot of work that has to get done in keeping people accountable, monitoring visibility, data analysis, the whole 9 yards. So what we realized is that the US was a completely different thing. And what we did was we went to go hire a VP as soon as we started to get some traction in the US to start managing that. And it definitely helped. That being said, I think, it's an expensive route. A VP of sales for, the US and then one for Canada, it's double, right? It's a lot of money that you got to invest, and you got to be ready to spend that. But I think it's a necessary move if you want to give United States a full throttle push, because the paperwork and stuff like that you have to do is absolutely chaotic. So I think that's when we knew when we needed to go get that and get on it ASAP. And it's helped. I can tell you it's helped relieve some stress.
I think by hiring as soon as you can, also you're probably avoiding a lot of pitfalls that we chat about. And so that whatever 200,000 that you're going to pay your VP is gonna you're probably going to avoid similar expenses by just not falling in the pitfall. So I would push for as soon as possible. If you believe in your product in the US and you have the capital, as soon as possible. And the way we do it, like we have basically 3 business at Aviv. We have the US retail, Canada retail, and e-commerce Canada, and they're really different. And I have a business owner for each one of them. And then I have my marketing that supports all 3, and accounting and R&D, and they support all 3 business units. But they're managed a little bit independently in a way. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second, because I'm curious though, when you talk about like the org structure, like how do you navigate understanding US labeling requirements, regulations? Like that seems like a whole other level of insight you need.
Yeah, like there's a lot of people out there who do understand labeling and regulations. And I would say this, that speaking, the CFIA is pretty strict, and anything that you have that, like, even from like manufacturing side of things, any of the paperwork, if you're BRC, anything stuff that satisfies CFIA will satisfy the FDA. And then it's actually easier, I would say, for packaging design for the US and for Canada. I would say it's like for Canada, like you design the house with all the furniture, and then for the US, you take out half the furniture, and you're like, I have to reorient everything. So that is a slight change for the US than Canada. But there's generally people out there who can help with labeling, guideline regulations. that one's not too crazy. And just to dovetail off the last point with the sales thing is like, a lot of people can't look, a lot of people can't like, that's when we're talking numbers. If you can't, you say you're like, oh, I can't afford, $200,000 salesperson. Well, like you're going to spend $6,000 to $9,000 a month on a sales management company, or if you want to pioneer with a broker, they're going to charge you a retainer, and maybe the retainer will break up regionally, but it adds up, right? So I'd say like you got to be budgeting that like $6-7 grand for that, and then you got to be budgeting for all of a sudden your merchandising needs support, and it adds up, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like I'm spending more on merchandising, brokerage, and just figuring this out than I'm collecting in revenue, let alone margin, right? So that's like when our point of like capital to support scale, like you realize how quickly it adds up.
How much do you guys, Dom and John, how much effort are you guys putting into the merchandising? If you guys have a team or a merchandising team, a contract went in or not, or are you just letting your product just be on the shelf? How are you guys getting visibility?
That's fun. Dom, you go.
Yeah, we don't have a team right now of merchandising. Yeah, that's the easy answer.
We brought in Dirty Hands. We just signed them up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Us
so
too.
we just actually, Mike. So guys on the call, like we're all friends here. So like Jake's super helpful for me, Dom helpful for me, and so Mike, who's the VP of sales with Jake's team, was a legend. Told me to use Dirty Hands, but like they're not a solution for everything, right? Their specialty is Whole Foods, so they're coming in and merchandising. What we mean, guys, just who are listening in, is that the planogram adherence is a challenge. It is worse right now in the US because there's no labor. So there's a lack of labor. So there's a lack of planogram adherence. You can go in, you can see stuff still in the back room. It's on the bottom shelf. You'll get stressed out. The price tags are wrong. And so you've got a budget for that stuff.
So to everybody, what surprised you most about the US market?
The amount of opportunities is crazy in the United States. The shiny objects are insane, and you gotta resist yourself from taking on the shiny objects. But here's the kicker: if you have to grow and you have venture capital in your company and you need to hit numbers, those shiny objects become more shiny and magnetic, but it might not still be the right call for your business. And like, you got to be very careful the game you play there. Like, John said he took that large retailer at the beginning. He had to go, guns blazing as hard as he can to fix the stuff that was going on there. So it took a lot of energy, maybe off energy that could have been given somewhere else. So I think you got to be very careful because the United States is 10 times the size of Canada. And yes, we're the same size in terms of length of a company, in terms of like, geographic stuff, but you've got a lot more stuff going on there, and consumer habits are very different across the states. If you look at Canada, you look at Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, it's relatively similar in terms of how they shop and what they like. 50 states is very different. So you got to be very aware of that. And that's why I guess we all agree with the regional side at the beginning, but it's tough, and it's addicting to get those wins there. And you got to be very, very careful as a new business going there.
100%. Dom?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go back to the labeling thing because we got into a situation quite early on where in the US there's those law firms that basically all they do is they look at your packaging, they go in the trade show and they walk the floor and they look at your packaging and they try to see if there's things that are not conform. And there was a tiny little thing on our packaging, and we receive a cease and desist letter, and that cost us a little bit of money, and we had to reprint everything. And we had done the work with a Canadian firm on the compliance things. So now I have a guy in the US that, specializes in that. And so yeah, that was the thing that, find the right compliance agency. For us, it's been a guy in the US that's dealing only with FDA that's been fixing all our packaging. Yeah.
We've had the trifecta now. Jake, you had Hershey's. Dom, you had someone not going to name. And I had a big CPG send us a cease and desist as well. So we've had the trifecta. Yeah? We had the trifecta. And they called us out again. We're like, hey, look, it's going to get done. So like that, yeah, the Dom's point, like it's you got to be careful. Got to be careful.
Sure. And Dom, I'm just going to go back to you, but I want to hear from everybody. You mentioned you've kind of moved a bit away from influencers and social media, but I am interested to hear how all of you have leveraged or continue to leverage social media to grow success in the States.
Yeah. Well, social media, we're still pushing on it. Big believer on it for driving awareness. TikTok in the US has been driving tons of awareness for us. Not all the videos work, but we had a couple of videos with like 5-6 million views, and that was pretty good for awareness. But as far as like investing in paid advertisement on Facebook or even paid search on Google, like we're really scaling that back because ROI, return on the investment, is unclear and it can be a money pit. So rather investing it right now in demos and trade programs.
I'll throw this out there. As Jake says, don't sleep on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's an incredible platform. And Jake, I'll let you go through it because it's I've learned from him how important it can be for us to raise our awareness with buyers, prospective buyers in the US, to meet with people that can help share insight and guide us and make friends. So like Jake, I'll tee this up for you. Like what would you say for LinkedIn for the brand?
Yeah. So I think first of all, from social media standpoint, I think organically still building your brand and not just catering to Canadian specific or Quebec specific. Dom and I are in Quebec, just catering to the French population would potentially hurt your US side just because they don't speak that language, right? So you got to be very careful to be more of a, you fit most of the people. I think that's important. But from a standpoint of LinkedIn, it is a sleeping giant. For anyone that wants to push investors, retailers, journalists in the US, let's just speak US now, that algorithm really is powerful. So like, for example, I made a post about Walmart Canada the other day and it got, 60,000+ organic views. That means I could potentially be sending 60,000 folks to where we are in the store. And those folks are actively interested in this world. So I think that that's a power platform if you stay consistent with it, to post about your journey of how you're succeeding at retail, use that to get in touch with your buyers, use that to create more of a relationship. And I think that for us, we still invest in influencers as well. So there's specific influencers for, let's say, a Target, a Whole Foods, a Trader Joe's, which I find very different than the Canada. Is the US, they have these specific individuals that do like shopping hauls consistently at these stores. So their community is specifically built on, let's say, Target. So if you're a Target, paying these contracts to these people is worth it because they know the store, they already shop there and they're looking for products within that store. So finding those individuals can be very powerful on your marketing initiative. I think otherwise, just continue to build your brand and try to focus. Like when we started in Canada, we were 100% Canada, following. Now we're about 50% Canada, 43% United States. So it's growing, right? So that allows us, when we post, to cater to that US customer, right?
Yeah, I'd say just on what Jake's saying there, which is like, both Jake and Dom have rocked it with social, and I've watched them with admiration, like in terms of what they're doing and learning from them. We're also beginning to experiment with couponing in the US. So we're talking to Ibotta. There's a lot of couponing programs down in the US that are pretty advanced. And the way we look at it at Holy Veggie is it's basically what's your cost of customer acquisition. And if you can get a sample into a customer sub $10, maybe you're in a pretty good spot, because you could run demos, but you can't scale demos. That's the issue. They're so expensive. And the demo third-party agencies right now are all a mess down in the US because they've lost people for 2 years and they're trying to rebuild their teams. So I would say that, there's a lot of stuff down there, even thirdparty.com. So like, Jake and I were having this chat a little while ago. We were in DC together and we're talking about your own direct to consumer versus third party. And yeah, like you should be leveraging Instacart. You should be working with your retailers and their .coms, driving customers there. Like I was even looking at Liquid Death, their product detail pages, they actually drive the customer to Instacart, to Amazon and to Whole Foods. They're not even trying to run sale on their own site. So it's interesting to see the other strategies that are available to us, from a social landscape to help support the business.
I'm interested to hear from everybody else. Sorry, just to because I'm thinking about the overall marketing. I mean, the US is such a bigger market than Canada. I mean, how do you cut through all of that noise, like John was just talking about, marketing wise, like overall?
I think I just want to add something that's really important to what John said about Instacart is, for example, we're all merchandised in either refrigeration here or frozen. So it's already a difficult, very difficult game to play. It's limited. There's a whole thing. So it's not always in the front row of the store, right? So where some products can be pallet, they can put a pallet in the front and you have the disruption point. So these Instacarts, what they allow you to do is basically get front row merchandising because the website promotes it and it does scan as POS data. So your thing goes into Spin's data as soon as a purchase happens on Instacart and doesn't register as that, which is crazy. So if you just optimize that, understand how that is, you can really start dominating that space. And for us, I want to start investing more of our marketing dollars that were in that social digital space before into the Instacarts, the Target web app, the Walmart potential.com or .ca, and actually optimize that because there is so much dollars there to be made. And for us in difficult merchandising scenarios where you can't just open up that pallet in the middle of anywhere, these are ways to do that indirectly that actually work. And Canada's slowly getting there, but they're still not fully at where the US is on terms of that development and actually usage.
Perfect. Tom, did you want to add anything to that?
I'm actually learning a ton of things there.
So, amazing. Amazing. Well, you know what? I'm going to flip to rapid fire before we start our Q&A with the audience. And I'm going to start with Dominic. Running a business in Canada is super hard work in and of itself. What do you do to keep your head above water?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a little bit of what I mentioned. Like I sort of divided with business owners, like for my 3 business units, so Retail Canada, Retail US, and D2C Canada. And yeah, it's just having the right team, honestly, because yeah, it can become heavy. As soon as we launched in the US, the first year was a lot of disruption because then your marketing team is split in 2, but you haven't doubled the size of the team. Same thing for accounting, same thing for operation team. So the first year was a big mess. Now we're catching up. We've invested in systems, invested in ERP, and so not to double the size of the team because you're doubling the territory. You need to make certain investment. And for us, it's been systems, and also, like I mentioned, very more experienced professionals to lead those business units.
Amazing. How about you, John?
I think we're learning a lot. It's interesting to hear, Dom and Jake talk about this. And the one theme I hear is basically things are very fluid, and we're constantly learning and trying to update our knowledge and improve. And where we're at right now is we just learned a ton over the past 6 months. So everyone on this who's listening in, what Jake and Dom have talked about, this is we've had 2 years of some people were on this really hurt their business, or other people really helped their business. Either way, our forecasting's out of whack. So when we're trying to look ahead the next 12 months, we're all confused as to what data we're supposed to be using. So say for what we're doing right now is we're trying to look at things quarter by quarter and month by month in terms of projecting where we need to invest in terms of people, process, product, or profit. How do we need to improve each one of our Ps? And when it's challenging, it's definitely challenging. But there's also no better time, I'd say, to Jake's point about opportunities. No better time to be in this business because there's a lot of stuff that's getting cleared out, and a lot of refocusing on food that matters. If you've got a great product and you've got a great brand, you can make a dent and have a lot of fun.
I want to add 2 things in is the 80-20 rule is really important. Basically, find out where 80% of your volume is going to come. It's usually going to come from 20% of the accounts, and give all the love you can to those things. And when you do that, you could work with managers. And I always say to John, actually, we always talk about this specifically, is show up. You show up, whether it's for investors, journalists, or managers, or your store clerks. What you'll learn at the ground level is epic. What I tell you is, when I went into Walmart Canada, for example, just speak of Walmart Canada, our merchandising was completely not great. And then when you go build a relationship with the team on the ground there and learn where it actually works and where you can go, that's maybe not planogram, stuff like that, you can optimize your placement, your merchandising, your strategy, and then take that those 20% accounts that you could do that and just give 80% of your resources to it. And I promise you'll reverse engineer what you need to hit in terms of your revenue by just those accounts. And that's what most of our competitors looking at their strategies, you know, and how they did it, how they've reached their 100+ million in revenue was literally 20% of their accounts. And they gave it 80% of the time, focus on them and let the other ones just be, you know, where average, let's call it, or just get by where you need to get by so you don't get kicked out. I think that that's where a lot of people tend to get caught up, is the spray and pray and not focusing on the ones that should be hitting the numbers that they should be hitting, because the data is available in the US. It's there. You could buy it, you could find it, you can get the visibility. It's not so much in Canada. So there's a big difference there.
Terrific. Okay, kind of a fun question for everybody. If you can even imagine this, if you weren't doing this, what would you all be doing? Vacationing?
No, definitely not vacation.
No.
No.
Like, we're all builders, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a common theme. We love building stuff.
Yep.
You know, I can imagine, like, you know, no matter what, we'll all be building stuff for the next, you know, 30, 40 years. Like, we don't sleep, right? With like taking you know, like it's fun. It's fun building stuff.
Yeah, Catherine, I'm not showing my eyes because I have so many bags under my eyes. So you talk about not sleeping. But no, I think I would do something with building community. So like, you know, whether it's a product in CPG or something else, what I've learned is the power of storytelling and being authentic can really be powerful in whatever you use it for, whether that's politics, whether that's CPG, whether that's, you know, a different industry, a service. So I would figure out where that passion would take me and do that. But for us, like John said, 30 to 40 years, we all want to be building something. You know, we feel the purpose and fulfillment that we get, and it is a crazy feeling that is not, you can't put it in words. It's exhilarating, it's painful, it's miserable, it's amazing. And I think we're all addicted to it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I want to build something now.
Okay, join the party then. Let's go.
Yeah.
Dom, how about you?
Yeah, well, nothing to add. Like, we're all here by choice, right? And we could have chosen different projects. You know, we could be changing direction, but like I don't feel stuck, you know, in Aviv. I'm doing it because I love it. And if it was not Aviv in a couple of years, like the guy said, it would be something different. I love building brands and product that reach consumers, like B2B business type of thing. I don't think it would be my jam. And I'm in business with my wife, and she's really a brain in terms of branding and marketing. So yeah, I think it would be, if it was something different, it would just be another brand, another type of product that helped people. Yeah.
Amazing. So I'm going to move over to audience questions now. I've got one waiting. So I would encourage anyone, if you've got questions, pop them into that chat and we'll do our best to get to you. First one is there any publications or resources you recommend using for research and information into the US market, other than spins that you mentioned?
Data, 100%. That it's a must. Buy your spins data. I know you said other than spins, but buy it because you really get the visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, spins, and then just ask questions. Like, don't be afraid to call up, you know, a buyer or message a buyer on LinkedIn, or like show up to Expo East and just introduce yourself and say, hey, I've got some questions. Like, you know, we're thinking of launching in the US, and if we were to pick you guys, like, what are you looking for? What would your velocities be? Like, where are your holes? Like, where's the white space in your category right now? Like, you can ask the questions, right?
For sure.
We got a grant when we start thinking about the US to purchase like data in the US to build our business plan, and so we bought a study on smoothies, and specifically to the US, and it was so funny. Like, they would say things like the best selling flavor is banana strawberry smoothie, and I guarantee you launch a banana strawberry smoothie in the US and nobody's gonna take it. So it was completely useless. Luckily, we didn't pay for it. It's the government that did. But I would be careful with surveys like that, with studies like that, because they can be very generic and not really on trend. Yeah.
Was that a provincial or a federal grant there, Dom?
You know,
I'm not saying.
Yeah, he's not gonna say, Dominic, send it to me after private. I need to maybe use that, you know. But no, I think, Catherine, also another thing is, like John said, ask other people. They're very open to it. There's a lot of US entrepreneurs that are building their businesses there. They have the good, the bad, the ugly that we would need to grow out there. And I think, you know, nothing hurts by asking. Like LinkedIn, again, you'll connect or Instagram, wherever it is, or, they'll give you the stuff. And then also work with your buyers. They have all this knowledge of how the consumers shop, what they want, what the trends are showing. Just ask them. They'll give you the information, because if it's a good partnership, they want you to win. So it's a win-win for both of you, right? So I think just ask. Simple.
Yep. Terrific. This one's directed to everybody, but specifically to John. When you say you would reconsider entering US, well, I guess this isn't for everybody, entering US with Target, you would reconsider entering the US with Target. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I realized I also blew up a couple of questions with the whole how much capital you need thing. I saw the thread going there. Look, it's not like it's Target agnostic. I would just say it's more so if you get presented the opportunity by a large retailer. Like, we love Target, they're phenomenal. But if you get presented an opportunity by a large retailer in the US and you aren't currently selling there, and this is something Jake touched on earlier as well, and Dom with the Northeast, just really think through how you're going to support it. Like, because, the whole thing too is, like we mentioned, the idea to get one shot. Like, you do get that one shot. And if you go in there and you're not performing in 12 months, you're out. Right. And then what's the story you're telling to the next retailer? Sorry, we bombed at Target. So you want to export success. And so if you're going to take that opportunity, take it and run like the wind with it, and just do whatever you can to make it successful.
Bombing that opportunity crushes you, like not just on the retail side, but on your whole narrative of how you raise money after. It's like, okay, if John bombed Target, let's say hypothetically, it's like, okay, well, then is he going to be able to make it in US conventional ? Is there this? And then guess what? Your funding gets completely changed, and you need that funding to go grow in another country. It's just factual information, unless your business is extremely profitable at a very, very high margin. So I think that you got to be very wary of where you go and who you work with and how you execute on that. Out of stocks is a big thing across all of these things. You need visibility.
Amazing. Another question coming in for everybody. What comes first, finding a distributor or finding a retailer that is interested? Good question.
Well, John said it before, if you get an anchor account that wants you, some of these accounts in different regions are anchors for an opening of a DC center for a UNFI or a KHE, let's call it. So if you have the retailer, like let's just give an example that it's Whole Foods SoCal region wants your product, they're going to be able to open up the Chino warehouse for you, right? So I think that that's important, is get on the radar of the store that make them pull to want you. They have the ability to unlock the distributor for you. And otherwise, it's very hard to convince these distributors to grab that risk on your product. Otherwise, you'll have a product that goes bad. I have a short shelf life. I'm sure Dom and John don't have the longest shelf life. So be very careful on that.
Yeah, so for us, it was this sales team first, and the sales team can convince those anchor account with you to say, like, you got to take a VPN, and because there's a bit of work being the anchor account that if you just show up, like you might get a lot of no's before you get one. So I'd say the first thing from my perspective is the sales team, broker, and then whether it's your staff or broker, and then anchor account, and then distributor.
Yeah, like, it's some of the retailers, some of the distributors, we've been seeing this, like, at the shows now in the US. Some distributors have these like little pilot programs where they'll bring you in early. Retailers now have them as well. Target has Target Takeoff. I know 7-Eleven's rolling one out. But, if you find you're in a spot where you're trying to sell the distributor on it's different in Canada. Canada, Unify, Purity Life, Horizon, it's different up here in Canada because it's a smaller base, right? But if you find yourself in a spot and you're trying to convince a distributor in the US to bring you in, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? Like, go find a way to get the interest from the accounts first, and then they can do the work for you to unlock it, right? And then it takes several weeks to unlock it too, like to get codes come through, and then you'll see your pricing, and then you'll lose it because your pricing looks crazy, but that's just the catalog price. But yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Thanks. Okay, another question here. How do you educate customers in the US about a new brand? So this This person has created Aloe, a protein powder for hot coffee. It takes work to educate the consumer about innovation. What is your best advice on how to educate consumers about something new?
We're actually trying something right now because for us it's a challenge. Like it's not, there's a bit of education to do it right. You know, it's a new way to make a smoothie. So we're trying something right now where we're going to put a QR code on every container, and direct them to a page where we're going to go step by step how to make the perfect smoothies. Because it's been a challenge. Like people, they open it, they're like, they don't really read the instruction, they throw out the packaging, and then so it is a challenge. And demoing, like John mentioned, like we can't do 1,000 demos a month. So yeah, trying to find those creative ways to bring people to digital, and then have a fantastic flow to educate the consumer to do it right.
Jake.
Yeah, so for us, we haven't had to experience the education part, but the brand building part I can answer, not the education, because we're a chocolate bar, so there's not that much rehearsal or instructions that happen. So it says chocolate bar on it, right? So it's easy on that. But I think you need to build awareness before going into the US. Do not go in without that brand awareness, and use your social media, use influencers in the US to help you get that. They have platforms that are built to literally educate people on products, new products, discovery items. Find those people, work with them. Yes, it's a bit expensive, but at least their communities will start to at least know you or have seen your product. And then when they see it at retail level, they're like, oh, I saw it from XYZ's account, I'm going to buy it. And I think that's something that's really important. Again, just there is a capital intensive part to it.
Amazing. So one more question is, do you all, for everyone, do you have any big brands that you've looked up to for inspiration or use in goal setting?
MDS, baby, midday squares. Look, for me, I get like inspiration seriously out of like seeing my friends, like, seeing what Jake's doing and Les and Nick, and seeing what Dom and Claudia's doing. And there's also brands doing stuff in the US, and you can look at it like, oh man, but like you got to keep in mind like how much capital is behind that, who's behind that. Like we reference Liquid Death quite a bit, but that's an anomaly, right? Like they're pumping out good quality, like really expensive content. They've got a good setup, right time, right place. And then there's other brands like, look what Seth Goldman's doing with, just relaunching Just Tea, and like, he's doing something very much the long burn with this stuff. He's going to be, that's a 30-40 year buildup. What about you guys?
Both of you, first of all, great inspirations.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other entrepreneurs in the US that are doing phenomenal things, and Canada. But I think a big company that has been an inspiration and actually very helpful, by the way, which is surprising, is Mars Company. Mars is a privately owned, obviously, huge chocolate conglomerate, and they've built their family business on a longevity angle. So not quarterly necessarily, focused on long term. And I think that's what Midday Squares is trying to do. And not trying to get out in 3 years, 5 years. We're trying to build something that we could be around for the next 50, 100 years. So not necessarily creating the same products as them at all, but more on how they built the legacy is very inspirational, in my opinion.
Amazing. Terrific. Okay, we're coming near the end. So I just want to encourage everybody watching, follow these guys on LinkedIn for sure. I'm not going to open it up to say that you could ask them any questions you want, but they're a great resource. And I want to thank everybody so much for participating today. I could talk to you guys all afternoon. I want to remind everybody that we were recording this session, and we'll be sharing it with all the registrants via email tomorrow. And the recording, should you miss it, will also be on the CHFA Now website under special events. So thank you, everybody, again, for your time and your insights, and everybody for attending. It's been a pleasure.